From the Greater Columbus Convention Center, the 2023 Arnold Classic has concluded. History has been made. For the first time ever, the Arnold Classic trophy is heading to the United Kingdom as SAMSON DAUDA is your champion. I am joined by Chris the Technician Aceto, Dom Mutasio, and I just ran in to literally the coolest guy in Columbus, the legend himself in the flesh, Jimmy. I'm Sadiq Faruqi. So glad you could join us for what has been an exciting Arnold Classic. Jimmy Mentis, we're going to go to you first because you look at what we saw at this past Olympia, fast forward 7 weeks later. I mean, top to bottom, elevation of quality from 7 weeks ago to now, your initial assessment of what we saw this weekend.
Absolutely. Compared to the Olympia stage, SAMSON, Nick, Andrew Jack. I mean, these guys just tightened it up. They took the criticism and they brought it in lighter. They brought it in tighter. I got to tell you, I was really excited. This show, it got me inspired, it got me motivated for just bodybuilding itself. I mean, we knew we had a good Olympia last year, right? But now the big boys came in shape, right? And they dieted, they struggled. You could tell they suffered, okay? And they got rewarded. And I think SAMSON deserved to win. It was close, very close. But I had SAMSON winning it, but it was very close.
Chris, as long as we've been talking over the course of the last few weeks, obviously you had the initial announcement of the lineup and then obviously the tweaks. Nick Walker entering, Big Ramy entering, Andrew Jack entering, Patrick. So obviously you had a star-studded, world-class lineup. Was this everything that we had built it to be and more?
It was everything. You know, it started out with a weak lineup, like an odd lineup, almost like, gosh, what are they going to do for the lineup? And it ended up with an unbelievable lineup with people in great shape, great condition, a real battle, meaning that this show was judged from the second prejudging started to the end. And I'm sure after prejudging they didn't have a clear-cut winner. So my assumption is they threw the scores out, so to speak, and started over, and they judged again what was in front of them tonight. And SAMSON DAUDA, you know, he came out tonight a lot denser, a lot fuller, a lot more separated. I thought the changes that he made between, you know, last night and tonight was like borderline. They were just great. You know, he had faded in prejudging yesterday. He was super full and tight all the way through from finals, from beginning to end tonight. And I think that's clearly what put him over the edge. And they judged him. I mean, he was in the middle for most of the prejudging. He might have had a slight lead, but I think, you know, the slam dunk came with the improvements between last night and tonight.
SAMSON. Dominic, before we get to SAMSON DAUDA, your thoughts, obviously you and I covered the Olympia just 7 weeks ago, and, you know, after prejudging, you sense a sense of disappointment, expressed some disappointment. Your thoughts on the overall lineup, again, hybrid Olympia lineup that we saw, but really universally agreed upon, just a better showing.
So I think like the thing that stuck out the most is I think these guys took a lot of the constructive criticism that they got at the Olympia and made the necessary adjustments and came in overall a lot better at this show, which essentially that's what bodybuilding is all about, is the ability to make improvements to your physique in X amount of time. And I think that they did that. I think that there was a big difference between the prejudging and the finals. I think at prejudging, I probably had Andrew Jack maybe slightly ahead there, SAMSON in second and Nick in third. And then here, I had it pretty much the way that they had it. I thought that Big Ramy made a lot of improvements too, as well. I thought argumentatively you could have had him as high as even second. I thought that he looked really good, but I mean, I was pretty happy with how the overall placings went. But the first night, I had it like completely different a little bit than where it was here.
Let's talk about that, because after last night, Chris Aceto, you and I, we slightly had. I mean, it could have been a coin toss. I think you could have made a compelling argument for Andrew Jack as well as for SAMSON DAUDA. Talk about, I guess, fundamentally some of the biggest differences for both SAMSON and Andrew from last night to tonight.
SAMSON was much fuller here tonight, cleaner lines, the fullness and and less, a smidgen less water retention. But I think it looked like the fullness gave the appearance of better condition, or it added to his condition, or his 3D look. He just looked rounder everywhere tonight. Through the thighs, he looked rounder. Through the hamstrings, he looked rounder. Through the pecs, and I think that Andrew, who brought what I thought was outstanding and impeccable condition, brought in very good condition tonight. So, by comparison, you see one going this way and the other guy going that way, and I think that's the deciding factor.
Jimmy, what impressed you most about what you saw out of SAMSON DAUDA this weekend, last night to tonight?
It's just like Chris said. His lines were a lot cleaner, it's fuller, rounder. I don't know what he ate. Must have been the hamburger and French fries or something. But if it was that, but you just saw tonight when he came out, he was just fuller, rounder. His intercostals were out. It was just his glutes were out, hamstring tie-ins, lower back. You can tell that whatever water he had under the skin, it was pulled into the muscle.
What did you make out of what you saw from Andrew Jacked?
Andrew, I had Nick Walker winning the prejudging, and I had Andrew with SAMSON second, third, back and forth. Andrew, the more he was posing, the drier he was getting.
Yeah, last night got stronger.
Right? So it kind of threw me off. So when I saw Andrew come out on stage tonight, I knew it was like a path. Everybody ate, everybody relaxed, okay? And I'm like, well, if Andrew is this good, how is everybody else? I'm like, we're in trouble now. We got to start this prejudging, this final judging all over again. Andrew, to me, I think Andrew's more dangerous in the future than SAMSON is, okay? I think he needs to, I'm not here to criticize anybody, but if I had to nitpick Andrew, hamstrings, glutes, more glutes, lower back, but he's impressive. I was just backstage, and I'm just seeing him face to face. He's just a big guy. I was impressed with him. I was impressed with SAMSON. Nick is always a fighter. I think he faded as time went on. But I was very impressed with SAMSON and Andrew.
Let's talk a little bit more about Andrew Jack, because again, we tend to forget that this is someone who is very new to the sport of bodybuilding. We were talking to him at the Olympia, and he's just a natural athlete. He's a genetic freak. He was talking about how, well, he tried soccer. He excelled at soccer. Tried other sports, excelled at other sports. Tried his hand at bodybuilding, and why not, go ahead and win the Arnold UK, the Texas Pro, impress at your first ever Arnold Classic. Specifically, what the point that Jimmy makes about his future potential, and sometimes we're careful about projecting too far to the future about any bodybuilder, but in general, what are some of the improvements that Andrew Jack can make going forward that could really put him in that position where he could be shaking Arnold's hand?
It's a great question. I think that at the end of the day, while you can focus on this or focus on that, I think if you take the condition that he brought here and you can maintain that and put it on a scale with 7 to 10 pounds more, everyone's in trouble. Just because if he can battle, with this physique, right? Because this is a SAMSON that just, in my opinion, is way better than the Olympia. So if he can battle with SAMSON here, and I think just adding more muscle, it's going to go in the right places because it's already in the right places. It doesn't have to focus so much on this or that or the other thing. It's just, it's going to go uniformly wherever his body weight goes up.
Biggest improvements you would want to see out of Andrew Jack?
I would say on the side poses is what kind of cost him a little bit. I think that Nick...
From the legs?
Well, from the front, his quads, I feel like that's what won it for SAMSON, essentially. The first night, he was fading a little bit at prejudging, and then he came in fuller. And with someone that has such a good structure like a SAMSON or Andrew Jack, if they're slightly on the flatter side, it takes that structure and takes the wow factor away from that structure. And then when he came back at the night show, he had that fullness nailed while not being too much where he spilled over. His back was still nice and tight. His glutes and hams were tight. And he had that fullness that just made his his structure just stand out, exponentially. And I feel like that's what tipped him over the scale. If Andrew Jack puts on a little bit more tissue in the right areas, his backside, a little more on his quads because he's a little bit taller in stature, he has the most potential to really be dominant in the future.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about Samson Dauda, and because, really for the first time this year is where he has some hype riding behind him. We talked about him coming into the Olympia as a true throwback. Many people like his physique because he does reminisce a lot about, the 90s era physiques. He brings that roundness and, validating himself in a sense, placing top 6 for the first time at the Olympia. But, when you consider, again, we're talking about Andrew Jack's future potential. When I was talking to Chris after the 2022 Olympia, and we were talking about Samson Dauda's future potential, he said, don't change a thing. Just continue to do what you're doing. Obviously, we talk about that kind of a structure that he brings, the fullness, the roundness. In your opinion, Samson Dauda placing top 6 at this past Olympia, how far is he from challenging for a Mr. Olympia title?
2 years. I'll give him 2 years. I think he's got it down. He knows what it needs to take it.
Considering that he'd be going up against, again, the likes of a Hadi Chupan, a Derek Lunsford.
Absolutely. I think Samson in 2 years, we'll be sitting here saying again, either he's first or second or top 3 easy. I mean, he's got the whole package. Like, we're going back now, like the 90s, right? The big, round, full look. What was he, 280, 290?
I think like 270, right?
I heard 297.
297.
I mean, come on. I mean, he brought it. So if he's doing that, could you imagine in 2 years from now it brings it around 280, 275, 280? Even leaner, even lighter.
Do you agree with that projection as far as Olympia title prospects for Samson Dauda?
I think that's up to. I mean, you can't put a timeline on it. Why not next year? It's like you're throwing a year away. I mean, if you earn it to win it, why? If you're not at your best, which he wasn't at the Olympia, and I can say that because this is his best, then how would he have done if you had taken this physique and backtracked it into the Olympia? There's no way he would have been 6. Impossibility. So, when you project it into the future, why not this year? I mean, he's big enough, he's round enough, he's got the shape, he's got the fullness, he's got separation, he's got condition. I mean, it's tweaking from here, I would think.
I think based on how much progress he's made already over the last 15 months or so, I think without a doubt that he'll be in the top 3 at this next year's Olympia, without question. He has plenty of time. He doesn't need to qualify for the Olympia. He could focus on making the necessary improvements, and I think that he's going to be a threat this next coming Olympia.
It's a very good point, yeah.
And the beautiful part is he's learning. He's humble.
Yeah.
Right? He's going back to work, and he's like, hey, I need to fix this. I need to fix that. I need to do this. I need to do that. And that counts. When you think you know everything and you win shows, that's where you stop.
And of course, we give a shout out, congratulations to his coach, Milos Sarchev. Did a phenomenal job and a well-deserved Arnold Classic title. Let's get a thought, a Big Ramy. Because, obviously when we talk about Big Ramy, we're talking about, riding in this past Olympia on a 2 Olympia title winning streak, and then obvious disappointing finishing 5th. So this show had a lot riding for him. We figured, all right, even if he doesn't win, can he show something that will keep us on, the Ramy train? Or if he comes off, would he be essentially risking, any future, I don't want to say, all right, it would have been over, but obviously there would have been a lot of people who would have been out on him. Chris, what did you see in terms of improvements? Obviously there were improvements. He came in a lot better here at the Arnold Classic. Specifically, what did you like about Ramy this weekend as opposed to 7 weeks ago?
I mean, everything was better here. At the end of the day, every single thing was better. He's bigger, rounder, had better density. His condition was better here than the Olympia. I mean, it says a lot about the depth of the show that, we just talked about Dauda. How would he have done with this physique at the Olympia? Well, the irony is, how did Ramy do at this show?
Right.
With
how would that
a total,
right.
at this show. That's how you measure the depth of this show. He's a lot better here. And the competition is different. The competition here is a lot different in terms of when you line them up. You have two short guys, first and second at the Olympia, versus two crazy tall round guys, two drastically different physiques. And he's not standing at the Olympia next to 6'2" Andrew Jack, 6'2" or 6'1" Samson Dauda, with like crazy tapers and roundness. So it's a different lineup, and here he is better, and he's still not beaten who we would expect him to beat. You look like you're going to say something.
Yeah, you can win it. Let's get a guest drop in. 22-time Olympia winning coach Hani Rambod. Hani, what did you make of what we just saw? Samson Dauda, first ever British bodybuilder to win the Arnold Classic.
He looked amazing. Last night, I really thought he was ahead. I thought Nick and Andrew were battling it out. I thought it was Andrew's best conditioning he's ever had. I thought he looked really, really complete. I thought that he had really good knockout shots, but I think that he was just a little bit thin still, but that's not something that could be able to be fixed right away with Andrew. But I think that superiority-wise, he's got the best structure up there, but he still has some gaps. I thought Nick was a little bit behind last night in terms of the look. I felt like he lost a little bit of his quads in the last several weeks coming down, and I felt like he was trying to play a shape game when he's a mutant. He's got to stay fuller, he's got to stay bigger, and I think he lost it in his legs. Therefore, his waist actually felt a little bit wider, and when he hit that front lat spread, I felt like he was a little bit more up and down. I think tonight he felt like he built up, he got a little bit better, but you can't bring back muscle, but you did get a bit fuller, and I thought that it was close. I didn't look at the scoring cards. Has anybody looked at the scoring cards yet?
No, not made available to us yet, yeah.
Yeah, but I thought Samson was the best balanced in regards to his fullness all the way around, and his conditioning was better than the Olympia, but I think that everybody came in a bit better except for Nick in terms of just his conditioning was better, but I felt like he lost it in certain areas.
What did you make of this lineup, which was a quasi-Olympia lineup from just a few weeks ago to this weekend?
Oh, I think the lineup is probably one of the best lineups that's been in the Arnold for a while. So I think that it was a really heavy hitters, especially in the top five. And it was really cool to see somebody as big as Big Ramy next to Sean Clarita.
Yeah,
I thought that was really cool. I thought that was really cool. And I thought that even Big Ramy was better, especially tonight. Yeah. But it's one of those things that I think that he's so lower body heavy, and he still got to build a lot of separation in his legs, that I feel like there's some balance issues that are still going on, especially with his arms versus his legs, where his arms are still a little bit down. But and not to say that he can't turn that around, but I did think that he was much better here than he was at the Olympia.
Let's get a quick thought as far as Samson Dauda. I asked the gentleman here, do you see Samson Dauda competing for an Olympia title in the very near future?
I think right now, the way it looks, anybody's a threat. I think it really is. I mean, you saw Hadi Chopin was being able to be out there in the top 3, top 4 for a while and being able to hit, knocking on the door. I think Derek is a guy that as he continues to progress, taking a little time off here, not doing this show, putting more size on his quads, getting a little bit more maturity through his chest. I think that he's very, very dangerous.
So you hear it from Hani Rambod, 22-time Olympia winning coach. Final thoughts, gentlemen. One of the cool things about this lineup is that we got to see, and I say, the wild cards in Sean Clarita, Kamal El-Garni, of course, 212ers competing in the Open, and again, there's so much debate as far as whether or not, the top end of the 212, bring up the point as far as whether or not we even need a 212 division when the best have been able to hang in, with the Open class. Your thoughts will go around the horn. Sean Clarita, what we saw this weekend. Again, not just hanging in with the big boys, hanging in against some of the best in the world.
I love seeing Sean compete in the Open. I think he did an amazing job, and he gave up 100 pounds and he still was in there. I'd like to see one class. I think just like go back to the old days. It's the way it was. It's the way it should be.
Yeah, I don't agree. I think that the guys that are the lighter weight guys that turn pro still need a place to be pro. So I still believe the 212 has a legitimate spot in all of this, but I do think the top layer 212 guys, like Franco Colombo back in the day, came over and be able to win the Olympia. So I think we're seeing a resurgence of that because you've lost a little bit of that top-notch quality in the last several years. So you've been able to bring those 212 guys to like the Hadi Chopins, the William Bonac's, the Derek Lunsford's of the world up to the top. But it's one of those things that even though they have come up, you still need a feeder system, and you still need somebody that turns pro as a lightweight or a middleweight to be able to compete. Otherwise, where do you put those people? They need a place to be able to compete too.
From a fan perspective, would you like to see Sean Clarita continue in the open class or continue to dominate 212?
He can if he wants, but the only knock I have on the weekend is that they don't have a 212. I mean, it's the Arnold Classic, the biggest bodybuilding show of the year, where you're asking the wrong question, actually. The right question is, why doesn't the Arnold Classic have a 212 show? Hadi Chupin is a 212 bodybuilder who moved up. Derek Lunsford is a 212 champion who moved up. Sean Clarita is a 212 person who moved up. We've said this, forever, is William Bonac started out as a 212. I mean, if you're good enough, you can move up. But the idea that we are going to support bodybuilding and give out $300,000, which is absolutely fantastic for first prize, but say to people who are shorter, that's it. Essentially at the end of the day, they have shorter, and because they're shorter, they maybe have smaller structures, but are unbelievable bodybuilders. Oh, we're not going to have you at the Arnold. We'll just have you at like some show in Eastern European country, and that's it. So I think it's high time to bring the 212 back. Some of the people who have won the 212 Arnold when they did have it were unbelievable bodybuilders. We've had unbelievable 212 Olympia winners. Why aren't those people given the opportunity to compete at this stage, on this stage?
Let's get a final thought from you, what you saw out of Sean Clarita. Again, such an exciting storyline heading into this Arnold Classic.
I mean, I love his story. A guy that could come out and even win the 212.
They can't see your Van Damme face. You got to turn into that.
Yeah, we're going to get to the comment section right now. Oh, there's Jack Van Damme.
No, but I love his whole story. A guy that could come in and even win the 212 at only, I think his first Olympia, he was only like about 170 pounds. So, I mean, I think that's incredible. But, I mean, you still need to have the 212 division because a guy that's 5'1", they can't carry, 270 pounds of tissue on their frame. So, for him, he's as complete as Ronnie Coleman for what his size and his structure is.
212 weight cap.
Exactly. And, I feel like you need to have that weight class. But I think it would be interesting, though, at the Olympia to have the guy that wins 212 go into the open and see where they fall, but still have more 212 shows. Because then, when you turn pro as a welterweight, a middleweight, where do you really go from there? Then you're going to be stuck, at least 3 or 4 years without competing. So, I've even said that I think it would have been good for them to add one more class instead of a lot of these other divisions sometimes. I think it would have been great if they would have added maybe numerous classes and then have people go almost for nationals overall, but do it on a pro level.
It's been an exciting weekend. We saw SAMSON Dauda become the first ever British champion of the Arnold Classic. And for all the talk of this Arnold Classic, a quasi-Olympia lineup, this show absolutely delivered. It was exciting, it was great, and a well-deserved champion was crowned. For Jimmy Mentis, Hani Rambod, Chris Aceto, Don Matasio, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. Thank you for watching RXMuscle.com.